Okay, so today we're going to look at how to draw a walk cycle, right? How to animate a walk cycle for a character who is entirely drawn in Illustrator. So this character on the screen here, all of his body parts, his legs, his arms, everything, his feet, they're all drawn right in Illustrator and then imported and animated in After Effects. In another video, I did demonstrate how to draw body parts right in After Effects and animate them there. And the advantage is, if you have a path and that path is drawn in After Effects, it's very easy to manipulate it right in After Effects. But some people find those tools a little bit counterintuitive, and some people find it a little bit harder to draw right in After Effects. So this might be better for you if you're someone who is comfortable in Illustrator. The disadvantage is it can be a little bit harder to manipulate the details in an Illustrator drawing that's imported into After Effects. There are some ways, like I said, it's possible. It's just a little bit harder. So really the one you use is going to be a mix of what will let you achieve your goals and what you're comfortable handling. So let's just get started, okay? So we've seen the example. Let's get to work on creating this. So first, I'm just going to start an empty canvas here. So all I've done is created a new composition. My composition settings are 1920 by 1080. I've got 60 frames per second, and actually that's just to smooth out the motion to make it easier for you to see every single step, right? It'll be less jumpy. And I've got an 8-second duration, although I'll probably use less than that. I'll probably only use about 2 or 3 seconds. All right. And now let's take a look at our Illustrator file. Okay. So here's our Illustrator file. Now, the way this is constructed, you have to think about everything that you're going to want to move. You have to think about every joint that you need to articulate. Okay, so I know I need a shoulder, and I know I need an elbow, and I know I need a wrist. So for that reason, all of these parts, need to be drawn separately, right? And they need to be drawn on separate layers, okay? Otherwise, I can't animate them in After Effects, okay? So if we look over in my layers panel, you'll see every single body part is on its own layer, and I've named them, okay? So this will just make my life easier. These names will be preserved when I bring them into After Effects. Okay, so there's all those parts. Okay, the sock, the shoe's all one layer. The back leg here, all one part. Okay, and I've even got the neck on its own layer, just in case we want to articulate the neck a little bit. All right. So if you have someone, maybe they have a ponytail, or maybe this person is on a skateboard, or maybe this person has like a cape. If you want those things animated separately or independently of everything else, then the only way to do it is to make sure they're on separate layers. Okay? I'm just going to close this. We don't want to actually edit this in any way. So once you have your Illustrator drawing all set up, and once you've predicted what you are going to need to animate, which is helpful to think about in advance, because you don't want to start animating this and then realize, oh, I didn't draw this the way I needed to. You can just drag it in. So I'm dragging it right into the project file panel. The import kind is going to be composition, and we'll just use document size for the footage dimensions. All right. So that brings in a composition right here called President, right? And inside of it is all of our Illustrator layers. Okay? So just to be clear, when you bring it in as a composition, you create like another clip, right? And in that clip is all of your layers. I just want to, draw this guy right on this background here. So what I'm going to do is go to the folder where all these layers are held, and I'm going to bring those in. I'm going to bring those into my sort of main composition and just drag them right on top of the background. Okay, so you could make the animation here, but I don't want to. I want to draw it right on the background. So for that reason, I'm doing it in the composition I created in advance, right? All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is, a walk cycle, usually about 1 second each direction. That's actually probably a little bit fast, but I'm going to keep it to 1 second just because that's how it makes the math easier. If I go to like the real speed of a walk, which is probably like 1 second and 20 frames, then halfway becomes 40 frames, and then a quarter becomes 20, and that might be kind of confusing. So I'm just going to keep the walk cycle at 1 second. If you don't see this little blue guy here that I'm using to set the loop of the clip, all right, it's probably just because yours is all the way at the end. So you got to scroll. Let me reset it to default here. Yours might look like this, okay? So you have this little blue handle here, right? And it's solid gray all the way, solid light gray all the way to the end. And then here's your handle, this guy here. So this chooses, even though the duration of your composition is, in my case, 8 seconds, this is the work area. And this is what you'll actually kind of work on and will actually be looped. So if I drag this all the way to 1 second, right? Now I've got it in 1 second. When I hit play, keep an eye on this current time indicator. You see how the red line, as soon as it gets to 1 second, it stops and it goes back to the beginning? Okay, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. And of course, if you wanted to, you could always trim your composition. Knowing that you only need 1 second, you could trim it down. But I find it's nice to have a little bit of extra space. So let's just do 2 seconds, right? I'll make my composition 2 seconds. But I'm only actually working in the 1 second. All right, so what are we going to do first? Well, one thing that we need to think about is which body part is connected to which body part, and where is each body part connected to every other body part. So let's just start with the body. Let's start with the body here. I know that the shoulders are connected to the body, the upper arm is connected to the body at the shoulder. Right? So, right about here. So that means if I get my upper arm, right? So I've got these layers here called upper arm and upper arm back. I want to anchor them to roughly the shoulder. So let me show you why I need to do that. If I rotate this layer right now, see how it rotates? Right, that's his shoulder. And let's look at the other shoulder here. If I rotate it, see that? We don't really want that. We want it to rotate at the shoulder. So what we need to do is reset the anchor point. Right, the anchor point is this thing, and that's where it will spin around. So let's get this tool here, which is the pan behind tool, sometimes also called the anchor point tool. And I'm just gonna grab it, click and hold, and move it to where the shoulder is. So if you're having trouble seeing where the shoulder is, maybe I'll just hide the body. So there we go. Let's put it right there. Okay? We've got 2 upper arms. Right, we've got the one in the back and we've got in the front. So let's also reset it for the front. right? Now what else do we have? Well, we also have lower arms, okay? And our lower arms, when we rotate those, you'll see they're also not set up in the right spot, right? So right now it's kind of rotating around the wrist, but I want it to rotate at the elbow. So let's reset that. I'll just move that right to the elbow and we'll test it. All right, that's actually not working. So let's move it a little bit higher up. All right, cool. So that's, roughly rotating at the elbow. And we'll get it a little bit back a little bit more. All right, I'm gonna run with that. And then of course, we have two lower arms, right? Here's our other lower arm. So let's also reset the anchor for that. Right, there's one lower arm in the front, one lower arm in the back. All right, good enough for now. Cool. Okay, what else do we got? What about the thighs? Let's look at these. Oh, well, maybe we should do the hands. So the thighs are in my way, the upper legs, because I can't see where the wrist joins the hand. So let's just hide the upper legs. One upper leg. Here's my other upper leg. Now I'm going to select my hand, and we're going to set that joint up as well. Set it right there. And then I need to find my other hand. Here's the back hand. Set that up. All right. So now we can kind of move all these things together. And the beauty of it is, because I've set these up, I can now actually parent them so that when one moves, the others go with it, okay? So in the same way that if you swing your arm at your shoulder, your forearm and your wrist also move, we're gonna set it up to do that automatically as well. That's called parenting, all right? So I've got an upper arm back, and I've got a lower arm back, and I've got a hand back, all right? Why don't I actually move those layers together so that this gets a little easier? So I'm gonna drag upper hand back towards upper arm back, and I'm gonna find lower arm back and put them together, okay? So see, look, I've got these three layers making this person's arm, and now they're all together and they're in order. I'm gonna tell lower arm to follow upper arm, all right? So parent and link, we need that. If that's not visible, you can right click on this menu here and then get parent and link going. Right click, columns, parent and link, that'll turn it on for you. So we want the parent of lower arm to be upper arm back. So now when I rotate upper arm, look at that, the lower arm comes with it, all right? And I can also parent the hand, the back hand. Why don't I parent that to the upper arm? So that way when the upper arm moves, the hand comes with it. All right? So now when I rotate the upper arm, I get a whole hand, right? And if I rotate my lower arm, whoa, the hand doesn't come with it. What did I do wrong? I didn't parent it with the right thing. I need to parent the hand with lower arm back. There we go. So now when I rotate, the hand's gonna come with it. All right? I'm gonna reset those to 0. All right? So just to recap, the lower arm is parented to the upper arm. The hand is parented to the lower arm. let's rig up the front arms. Okay, so we'll do the same thing. So I got lower arm, hand. So I'll put those together, lower arm and hand. And now I need upper arm. Here it is. So these three guys are now all grouped together. Cool. So lower arm needs to be parented to upper arm. And hand needs to be parented to, not that one, lower arm. Now, by the way, you can actually just click and drag this, it's called the pick whip, and it will parent to whatever layer you drag it to. So we can do that as well. Let's just test it. I'll rotate the front arm, looks good. I'm going to rotate the lower arm to see if the wrist, yep, and the hand goes with it. All right, so we're good. So that's cool. Okay, what do we got left here? Let's do the legs. So I'm going to turn the body back on. All right, now we're going to do the legs. So let's start with the upper leg here. All right, let's rotate upper leg and see if we're in an okay spot. Actually, you know what? Like, that's not bad. Maybe I'll move it up just a little. Just a little. Yeah, I'm gonna move it right about there. Okay. Now I want to find the back leg and put it in right about the same spot. So upper leg, back. Upper leg, back. Put that in about the same spot. Now I want to hook up the lower legs, right? Create the knee joint. So we'll find lower leg. Okay, here's our lower legs. Lower leg is joined up. And then we need to also do the lower leg back. Okay. Let's just make sure everything's working okay. So I'll just rotate the upper leg. Just checking to see if, yeah, that looks good. And let's rotate our lower legs. See how that looks. Yeah, looks like a knee joint. Maybe actually the knee joint can come forward a little bit. Maybe a bit like that. Okay, so I'm going to reset both my lower legs. And let's check them again. Looks like it needs to come up a bit. All right, so I'm happy with that. I don't think the knee's going to bend much more than that. So I'm going to run with that. All right, now once again, we need to reorder our layers. So we need to keep them together. So I got lower leg back right here. We got to find upper leg back. Upper leg, where's upper leg back? There it is. Okay, so let's go get lower leg back and move it, drag it down here. Whoop. To underneath. Right? And let's parent it. So the parent of lower leg back is going to be upper leg back. Right? Now when I rotate the leg, upper leg, the lower leg comes with it. But let's also go get our shoe back. Here's shoe back. So I'm going to move shoe back underneath lower leg back. And I'm going to parent it to lower leg back. Right? And also we have to reset the anchor point, because right now we're going to rotate like that, which we don't want to do. We want to rotate just inside the pant leg, right? So now if the shoe rotates, it's It's going to kind of rotate like that. You know, maybe we can even put it a little bit higher up here. There we go. Cool. Now we got to do the front leg. So let's find upper leg. I'm going to move it down. I'm going to get lower leg. I'm going to move it down beneath upper leg. And then I'm going to get shoe. Move it down. And then looks like I haven't reset the anchor point for upper leg. Oh, no, wait. I guess I have. Lower leg. That's what I need. All set up. Perfect. So let's just set up shoe. So the only anchor point I need to reset is shoe. Right? Oh, wait. That's not where shoe goes. That's where shoe goes. Now let's do our parenting. Lower leg is going to be parented with upper leg. Shoe is going to be parented with lower leg. So before you go any further, always check and make sure you've done it right. So, oops, that's hand. So I'm going to go to upper leg. I'm going to give upper leg a bit of a rotate. Okay, looks good. Yeah, I'm going to check lower leg and make sure that the shoe comes with it. Yeah, shoe comes with it. Good. And now I'm going to go with the shoe, transform, and I'll make sure the shoe can still rotate independently, which it can. So I want to just hit Command Z to get back, all right? So I want all those rotations back at 0. Great. Okay, what else can we do here? Maybe let's just call that done. The only thing we need to do is move the front arm in front of the character. So let's find that. Lower arm, upper arm, lower arm hand. These guys, right? These need to be in front of the character. So I'm just going to drag them in front of body. Okay? So now they're up in front. I'm noticing that maybe it's a little bit hard to see. So I'm going to change the color of the shape layer to something a little bit brighter. All right. Hopefully that's more helpful. And don't forget to lock your background. I always like to lock my background so that I'm not constantly grabbing it by mistake. Cool, so let's start with a leg. Let's go to, make sure your current time indicator is at 0 seconds. And let's go to upper leg. Upper leg. And we'll just start by rotating it back. Just rotate it back. Right? And I'm going to lock that in. I'm going to lock that rotation in. Just click, lock. Okay? And I also want to rotate my knee just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. So we're going to grab the lower leg, and we're going to rotate that just a little. And I'm going to lock that in. And for now, I'm going to just stick with that. Baby steps. So remember I said we need to make this the starting and the ending? So there's a couple ways to do that. I can drag my current time indicator to 1 second, which I've decided is the end of my cycle. And I can actually copy and paste that keyframe in. See that? Or another way of doing it is, wherever your current time indicator needs to be, so in my case 1 second, go there, and then just click this right here. This just inserts a keyframe wherever your current time indicator is. And because this is what I want it to look like at this point, I'm cool with inserting this keyframe because this is exactly what I want. So you can just pop that in there and look, we got a keyframe. Now halfway through the cycle, that's when the foot is fully forward. Because I'm doing 60 frames per second, half of 60 is 30, half a second is 30 frames. I want to go to 30 frames on the timeline, and that's when I want to rotate the back foot to be the front foot. So I'm on the upper leg layer, and I'm just rotating it forward. Okay, and maybe I'll also, and by the way, you can see it's automatically inserted a keyframe there because it said, oh, Eric went to 30 frames and repositioned things. I better take note, right? I better keyframe that in. We also want to maybe straighten the leg out just a bit. So I'm going to go to lower leg. I'm going to select rotation there, and I'm going to sort of straighten, just straighten the foot out a bit. So let's see what that looks like. All right, doesn't really look like walking yet, does it? So one of the things that's wrong is, right about here, his leg shouldn't really be straight, should it? That's kind of where you start to lift your knee up, right? So let's say a quarter of the way, which is 15 frames, right? We've got 60 frames per second, 30 frames is halfway, 15 frames is 1/4 of the way. So at 1/4 of the way, or 15 frames, I'm gonna move upper leg a little bit more here, right? And then I'm gonna get lower leg and kind of bend it right almost that much, right? So that there's a little bit more knee bend. Okay. Actually, I think maybe he needs to bend his knee even more. So one thing that I see when people need to adjust a keyframe, they don't get it right on the existing keyframe. They'll get it like just beside, right? They're just beside. So now if I make an adjustment, I'm actually adding another keyframe, which will cause like whatever this is to happen. So make sure you're right on the keyframe, right over it, so that now when you make an adjustment, it doesn't add another keyframe. Okay. All right. So let's say I'm happy with that. Okay? I like that. We would like to reuse these keyframes because I know that this is a walk cycle, right? This is what I want the character to be doing. So maybe I can copy these keyframes and paste them into the back leg. Okay? So we'll get the rotation keyframes here on the upper leg. I'm going to highlight all of them and press Command C. I'll go to my upper leg back. I want to put my current time indicator at 0. Click on rotation and paste my keyframes in. So now we've got, we've got this. Okay? We're not quite done yet. We also need to get the lower leg because that has rotation on it as well. So go to lower leg, not the back, the front, the one we already animated. highlight all of those keyframes. Command or Control C. We'll go see our lower leg back. I want to paste these keyframes into rotation. Make sure you're starting at 0 seconds. Okay, so now we've got this, right? This isn't quite, this isn't quite what we wanted. What's going on? Well, these keyframes are perfectly in sync, whereas with a walk cycle, right, you want the back leg to be literally a half step shifted from the front leg. So actually we can do that. We can just grab the keyframes and shift them forward in time 30 seconds, or 30 frames, 30 frames or half a second. So this frame right here, where the leg is fully extended, that's where we want the back leg to be at the beginning and end of the cycle, right? We want it out of sync with the front leg. So then, well, why don't I just drag all of the keyframes so that this specific keyframe right here is here at the 1 second mark, right? So I'll put my current time indicator at the 1 second mark so that I can kind of visualize where it is. I'm going to select all of my keyframes and I'm going to slide them forward. I'm going to slide them forward, see, so that now that keyframe is at the 1 second mark. And now if we go to the upper leg and do the same thing, select all the rotation keyframes on your upper leg, slide them forward, see that? Right? So let's see what we have. Okay, so we're getting there. What's wrong here? Okay, the only thing that's wrong here is that because we slid these keyframes forward, look, there's no first keyframe, so to speak, right? That says to this leg, please be stretched out forward. But we do have that keyframe. Where do we have it? We have it at 1 second, right? This position here is where we want the back leg to start. So if I just select that keyframe, literally just grab it, Command C, go back to 0 seconds, paste it in, we're doing good. Let's do the same thing with the lower leg. Grab the 1 second keyframe, because this is a cycle, so the end of our cycle has to match the front of our cycle. And if we copy the last keyframe and paste it into the first keyframe, it's going to match. Right? Okay. Maybe we can add a little bit more detail to this. Okay? We can add a little bit more detail to this. So, for example, when this shoe moves, see right there, it kind of seems like floaty, right? It doesn't have gravity to it, so to speak. Like, it doesn't look like this character is walking. It kind of looks more like they're kicking their legs in the air, right? We got to kind of make it look like this individual is pushing off the ground. So the first thing we need to do is decide, okay, well, in that case, then where is the ground? So I'm going to pull up a ruler to help me see that. Show rulers, or Command R. And then I'm just going to drag out a rule, right about here. So then I can say whenever the foot is touching these things, this blue ruler, the character is touching the ground. So let's make the character kind of move up when it takes a step. Because if you think about it, if the foot is hitting the ground like that, you would push off the ground, right? Just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is kind of go to the body layer and make the body move up a bit every time a foot is in this position here, touching the ground, right? So I'll start with this leg on this side, the front leg. So where is it? There. So right about there, all right, is where that leg touches the ground. So we need to think about when the character is up, when his body is pushed up in the walk cycle, and when the body is down in the walk cycle. The first thing I want to do is lock it whenever it should be down. So this is down, right? This is a down part. And when a foot is pushing off the ground is an up part. So I know for sure the character has to be down. So I'm going to go to the body layer, lock the position in here. I'm going to scroll ahead to 30 frames. Both feet are in the air, has to be down. So to lock it in, I can just click this, add a keyframe, and it's going to add a keyframe that looks exactly like what we see. And then we'll come to the very end of the walk cycle, and I'm going to lock this in again. Okay, so nothing should really happen at this point, right? Nothing changes. It just means that when I start adding keyframes in, I know I'm not going to mess up what I already, like the instances where we know the character has to be down and not up. All right, so let's slowly scroll forward to right about here. And if you look, his heel still hasn't quite touched. So we still don't want him up yet, which means I'm gonna lock it in again. Then I'll move forward right about here. At this point, the effect of the foot on the ground would push the character up. So I'm gonna just tap my up arrow once. And then I'm gonna move forward right to where I think, you know, this effect would stop and the character would drop down again. And I'm gonna press down. Okay. Now you can see it's only, if you look really closely, you can sort of see his body moves. Now, one thing to keep in mind, it's only happening on the one foot, right? It only happens for the one foot. So let's just kind of move ahead and do it for the other foot. So once again, right about here, I want to lock in the position. And then I want to move ahead to where I think he should be up. And I'm just going to press the up arrow once. And then we're going to move ahead to where I think he should be down. Maybe right about here. And I'll press the down arrow. Okay, now it looks kind of weird because, you know, you would think his head would move with his body. Instead of doing this all over again, I can just parent the head to the body, right? And then the head will move with the body, which is what we want. So we'll go to our layers. I'm going to find the head. Here it is. And I'm going to say, your parent is body. Right? And come to think of it, you know, it doesn't really make sense. The hands aren't moving, right? The whole arms should move with the body. But because I've parented the hand to the forearm to the upper arm, if I parent just the upper arm to the body, then the other parts will come with it, right? Because they're already following the upper arm ultimately. So let's get our upper arms. Okay, so upper arm back. Parent will be body. Let's find the other upper arm. Where are you? Upper arm here. Parent will be body. Okay, now all the arms are along for the ride. Great. Why don't we do the arms? Why don't we do the arms? They're going to be really similar to the legs. Really similar. Let's find our upper arm in the front. Okay, here it is right here. Well, time to add some rotation. So at 0 seconds, I want to define the beginning of the cycle. It's going to be just like that. Just like that. And let's lock that in, right? We got to turn on keyframing, hit the stopwatch. And once again, we know that this is how we want to end the cycle. So move forward to 1 second and add a keyframe. You could also copy and paste the keyframe. We know that at 30 seconds, that's when we want the hand to be forward, the arm to be forward. So I can rotate that forward. Maybe right about there. So let's see what we got here. Cool. All right. Maybe we can add some like elbow movement as well. So let's go forward to lower arm. And, maybe when you're walking on the backstroke, your lower arm is fully straight like that. So we'll lock that in. I'm going to lock in that rotation. And then I know that I want it to end that way. So let's come ahead to 0 seconds. Lock in that by adding a keyframe. And then at 30 frames, maybe when you're walking forward, your front arm kind of comes up a bit like that relative to the elbow. All right. Okay, cool. So I'm going to copy these keyframes and paste them into the back arm. Let's find our back arm here. Hand, lower arm, back, hand, back. Here we go. Here's all these. Let's pause that. So it looks like the hand is kind of, you can see it peeking out from behind the leg there. That's just because these have to get moved behind the legs, right? So I just select upper arm, lower arm, hand, back, all the back, move it. All right, let's spin open the upper arm. And remember, we already drew these keyframes. So I can copy them from the upper arm's rotation, right? I'm just gonna grab these keyframes, Command C. Now we'll go to upper arm back. Select the rotation area. Make sure that we're at 0 seconds and press Command V. And here's my keyframes. So now, we can't see them because it's doing almost exactly what the back arm, the front arm is doing. We just gotta shift them out of sync. So halfway through the cycle, for the back arm, we want that to be all the way through the cycle relative to the first arm. Okay? So basically your middle keyframe is going to be your last keyframe, and your first keyframe is going to be your middle keyframe. Right? Slide it forward, okay? I don't need this keyframe anymore. So I'm going to delete that. And then I'm going to copy my last keyframe, Command C, and I'm going to paste that into my first keyframe, Command V. All right? So now I just got to go and get the lower arm animation keyframes. So I'm at lower arm. I want my rotation keyframes. I'm going to select them, copy them. Let's go visit my lower arm back. Let's talk about changing the rotation. make sure your current time indicator is set to 0 seconds, paste them in, and then shift it down the cycle, right? So the middle keyframe now becomes the last keyframe. We can delete this extra one, and then we'll copy the first keyframe and paste it into the 0 seconds. I agree, like this is a little bit fast, but once again, I've chosen 1 second because just the math is easier rather than talking like 28 frames or 12 frames. We can talk about 15, 30, and 1 second. Okay, maybe we can do a little bit more with this. All right, let's see about using a whole other tool that will let us sort of mush these shoes a little bit, right? Because right now, the way they dip below this guideline, right, like right here, doesn't really make sense, right? What should be happening is this shoe should be sort of bending, right, at the toe. Should be bending, and the whole thing should be sort of above the ground, right? Remember when I drew this guide, it was the ground. Let's use something called the puppet tool to kind of warp these shoes just a little bit to get a more like natural, less stiff feel. Okay. So I want to work on one shoe at a time. All right. And really with Illustrator, with After Effects, if you're finding that it's hard to select what you want to select, or like you're doing things and can't figure out why you're not doing the thing you wanted to do, reduce your mental workload, reduce the noise, and turn off any layer that may cause confusion. So if I'm going to be working on these shoes, I do not want to be trying to figure out which shoe is which. All right? So I want to work on this back leg here. I'm going to hide the other shoe layer. I don't want to see it. I don't want to be clicking on it by mistake. I cannot have that extra mental load going on. So what I want to do is morph these shoes. So right when they're flat like this, that's fine. But as the shoe moves, what should be happening here, instead of dipping below the guideline, the shoe should be bending, right? The shoe should be like kind of warping as the toes bend. Now, I didn't draw the shoe in 2 pieces in Illustrator, so it's not like I can do what I did with the knees and with the elbows and with the shoulders and just create a little rotation point. I need to use the puppet tool, right? This thing here, puppet positioning tool. So select that. The one you want is this one, puppet position pin tool. Okay. And I'm going to go right to just before the pin hits. I'm going to think about where this is going to need to bend and what handles I'll need to like grab it, so to speak. So I'll need to grab the shoe here. Okay, so this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. So I clicked here, right? And nothing happened. Why did nothing happen? Because I have the arm layer selected. So even though I clicked on the shoe, After Effects thinks I'm clicking on the upper arm layer, all right? So if you click and nothing happens, make sure you have the right layer selected. Make sure you delete the puppet pin that you just put because you don't want that. So I'm just gonna delete it. And I'm gonna go find the right shoe back. I'm gonna select that layer. Now I'm gonna say, I want a puppet pin here. Perfect. So I wanna be able to grab the ankle. I wanna put a pin here because I kinda want the foot to bend at that point. And I wanna put a pin here because that's where I wanna be able to grab this shoe. See, so I can kinda like grab it and warp it a little, right? All right. So as I do this, I'm going to be automatically creating keyframes, okay? So keep in mind that this can, if you make too many micro adjustments, you're creating lots and lots of keyframes, which can sometimes become frustrating. You want as few as possible. So everything's cool right here. I'm gonna leave everything just like this. Then when I get to about here, I wanna say, okay, so this should be kind of up, so should this leg, and you know what, maybe I need to add a point and kind of go like that, right? So now it's more like the foot here is sort of, the toe is bending, right? We're coming up off the floor, so to speak, pushing this body up, and then as it starts to release, we can see that we're now just above the floor, okay? So it pushes off, and at this point, I want to do the best I can to sort of reset this to default, right? So the shoe kind of looks the way I originally drew it, all right? So now we get this sort of shoes coming, pushes off, right? And we're running the animation quickly, you know, so maybe it's a little hard to notice, but it's definitely more natural, let's say, more realistic. Maybe we even want to move the ankle down a bit. And I wonder if this can't be even more pronounced. So see how it's kind of like got like a bit of a flopping look to it? That's probably because I've got too many keyframes. Although, it's not too bad. Heel comes down. At this point, we should be probably more flat. I would say that here we should actually still be touching. And there's like a area where here should actually still be like that. And then we're ready. All right, so subtle effect, but hopefully you can see maybe the use for this in other areas. All right, we should be able to copy these keyframes into the front shoe. Okay, so here's all those little keyframes we created. I'm gonna try and see if it's possible to just copy these, Command C. I'm gonna turn off the back shoe, turn on the front shoe, select the layer. Let's see if I hit Command V. Okay, got my effects. Now they're gonna be happening in the wrong spot, right? They're gonna be sort of out of time with when I want this to happen. See that? See that the shoe is warping here. Those warp effects are happening sort of at the wrong time. So we just need to kind of change their timing. So we'll go to Effects, Puppet, I guess Mesh 1, Deform. Here's all my pins. Fortunately, we cannot select them. So we just got to get them all open. Okay, there's all my keyframes. And now we want to move to where the shoe starts to touch. So right about here. And I'm going to make those warps start right about there. There we go. Now I notice, kind of funny, somehow, somewhere along the line, the front shoe is a little bit higher than the back shoe, right? So we're looking at my grid line here. And look at, oh, can't show the grid line. Keep an eye on the grid line. You'll notice the back shoe touches the red line. The front shoe does not. So I don't know how this happened, but I'm gonna fix it. I'm just gonna move the front leg. Pardon me, I'm gonna move, is it the front leg or the back leg? I'm gonna move the shorter leg down a bit. Right, so I'm gonna put it right here. And which leg is it? Is it the front leg? How do I know? I'm going to turn it off and on. Yes, it's the front leg. So all I want to do, I don't want to add keyframes. I want to move the default position of this. Just going to move it down using the arrow key until it touches the guideline. Make sure you're not adding a keyframe. If the blue stopwatch comes on, that's bad news. So I just want to nudge it down, nudge it down, nudge it down. There we go. Let's add some more detail. Let's just keep building the complexity of this. You know how people's head will kind of bob as they walk, all right? And it's not necessarily timed with the steps. You know, people's head just kind of bobs. If we were to add every single head bob, you know, that could be a lot of animation. That could be a lot of keyframing. We can use something called an expression, okay, which is just very, very simple code that tells something to constantly happen within certain parameters that we decide. What's a parameter? Parameters are like limits or confines, okay? So if I say you have to do, you have to do between 5 and 10 jumping jacks, your parameter is 5 to 10, right? So let's do that. Let's select the head. And when we do this head bob, we want it to happen, here, right? That's where we want that rotation to happen, right? We want it to kind of like do one of these a little bit. And again, I don't want to have to make it go down, move ahead 2 frames, make it go back, move ahead 2 frames, make it go down, right? That's how we'd have to keyframe it. Let's use an expression. I'm going to right click on the rotation and I'm going to say edit expression. And you'll see over here it says transform rotation. We're going to delete that and I'm going to type in wiggle, W-I-G-G-L-E, brackets, okay? Don't worry about where it says scintilla, right? So you need this. And the auto thing should kind of figure it out for you. And then we're going to put in 2 numbers separated by a comma. So I'm going to type in 5, 5. Let's hit play and see what happens. Keep an eye on the head. So the head is kind of moving, right? It's a bit jerky, it's bobbing, but the head is moving. Now, wiggle just means move the layer, right? Wiggle the layer. The numbers mean, the first number is how fast, and the second number is how much or how far. So if we're talking about jumping jacks again, right? If I tell you to do 10 jumping jacks, or 10 jumping jacks a second, and each jumping jack has to be a foot high, that's what we're looking at here. So you need 5 jumping jacks a second, and each jumping jack has to be 5 feet in the air. If I say do 25 jumping jacks a second, and each has to be 5 feet in the air, then the motion is going to get really, really rapid. See that? Super, super rapid. If I say 25 a second, and each has to be 50 feet in the air, I mean, there's going to be like a whole lot of action here, right? So I'm going to change this to 2 per second, and I'm going to leave it at 5, and I'm just going to see what this looks like. It's not bad. I might actually reduce this to 1 and make the head move a little bit more. Pretty gentle. Wonder if we can even wiggle a little bit faster. I don't like that click. So the reason it's like kind of clicking, see how it kind of snaps? It's because our wiggle cycle is not an even multiple of the 1 second walk cycle. Okay, so the 2 is not dividing evenly into the full cycle. So actually, when the animation loops back, the head is not done its wiggle, if that makes any sense at all. So it's just kind of restarting part way through. Okay, so you need to find a number that overlaps perfectly with the cycle. I'm going to try 3, and if that's too fast, I'll go back to 1. Yeah, I don't like that. So I'm just going to go back to 1. There we go. I think the head is kind of, the chin is kind of stuck behind, so let's make sure we move this above the body. There we go. Now the chin is no longer stuck behind. Okay, what else can we do? Maybe we can smooth out this motion just a little bit. Just a little bit. Smooth out the overall motion, right? Let's talk about easing. Let's ease these keyframes. So especially the legs could stand to do with some easing. So let's just use the default function for easing. So I'm gonna go to upper leg, right? Twirl it down. I've got my rotation keyframes. I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to press F9. Now, if you don't have F9, you need to find the FN button, right? Or if you press F9 and nothing works, especially if you're on a laptop, you need to find the FN button. So I'm going to press FN, which is the function button, F9, with these, by the way, with all of these selected. So let's look at them here and watch, they'll change. FN, F9, they change. And that's called easy easing, and it's going to smooth out the motion. Now I've only done part of it. Let's do all of our keyframes. By the way, if you want to see every keyframe everywhere, just double tap U, right? And that pulls up all the keyframes. Which actually means if I select every single layer, so I'm going to select every layer, and I'm going to press UU. Look at all of my keyframes in the entire animation are now visible. So actually, if I want to easy ease every single keyframe, it's pretty lazy. I can just do it like this. Function, F9. Every single keyframe is now eased. And I want to deselect everything. Let this render. See what has a little bit more momentum and a little bit smoother look to it all? Okay, and that's the basic idea. So hopefully from here you can see how to get layers out of Illustrator into After Effects, how to connect them, how to parent them, and how to set the anchor point. That's called rigging, by the way, just like a marionette rigged up with strings to the joints, right? Then how to make that rigging work for you using keyframes, and then how to finesse everything with something like the puppet tool or an expression like wiggle. So there's many, many expressions. Wiggle is just a super common one. Alrighty, so thank you for watching, and I really hope you make it through this, and I hope the tutorial was helpful, and thanks again.